Welcome back to our final panel of the day, which will focus on cyber resilience and discuss the current threat landscape and the solutions to strengthening cyber resilience going forward. I'd like to welcome Najib Zalwali, the Chief Information Security Officer at Clearstream Banking in Luxembourg. So, Najib, over to you in the panel.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Bruce. Thank you for joining. Maybe before we begin, let me issue the standard disclaimer that the views I share here are basically my own and do not systematically represent those of Clearstream. So today, we would like to speak to you about cyber resilience, a topic that has received a lot of attention over the past few years, and that is becoming increasingly important for FMIs in general and for CSDs in particular, and also the same for regulators. That said, first, maybe let's go around the table and start with a brief introduction of the panelists. Jason?
Thank you for having me, number one. My name is Jason Harrell. I'm the head of external engagements for DTCC, where I deal with public policy issues on cyber resilience, new and emerging tech, and third-party risk.
Manoj?
Thank you, Najib. My name is Manoj Sarangi. I head cybersecurity for National Security Repository Limited in India.
Very good, thank you. Olivier?
Good day, everyone. My name is Olivier Dazin. I'm working at SWIFT in the CSP team, and our team is responsible for the evolution of the customer security control framework, so those 30-ish controls, and also the independent assessment framework since last year. So we're progressing those documents as the threats come in, and we're also taking into account the community feedback to progress these frameworks.
Very good, thank you, Olivier. Jim, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Najib. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Jim Micklethwaite. I'm head of operations at Thomas Murray, and I look after the area which assesses risks within custodian banks and financial market infrastructures.
Very good. So since we have only 45 minutes to go through this topic, so we'll essentially cover three main subtopics related to cyber resilience. We'll start first with an introduction of the cyber resilience topic, related requirements, the threat landscape, etc. And then we'll cover what cyber resilience means for the CSD's value chain, and we'll end up with the latest developments in relation to cyber resilience regulations and supervisory practices and how they have evolved over the years. So that said, I think we are all aware that the growing number of and increasing sophistication of cyber attacks required CSDs and FMIs in general to take a kind of a holistic view of building cyber and building operational resilience along the value chains. But what does it mean exactly to be cyber resilient? And I'm not going to go into the details here, but I think it's worth at least start with a high-level definition. And in a nutshell, being cyber resilient reflects the ability of any organization to continue carrying out its mission by anticipating and adapting to cyber threats and withstanding, containing, and rapidly recovering from any successful cyber incident and cyber attack here. The objective, or the main objective for FMIs in general and CSDs in particular, is to maintain operational capability and promote the maintenance of fair and orderly markets, because that's one of our key objectives and missions serving the financial markets. So that said, Jason, how do you describe the threat landscape and the latest developments that we've seen during the past few years?
So, the geopolitical environment, pandemics and other world events continue to drive changes in the cyber threat landscape. I think that cyber attacks have increasingly become part of the toolbox used by nation states to meet their agendas, and I expect that trend will actually continue. We've already seen threat actors continue to look for weaknesses in the supply chain. And we've seen that through the SolarWinds, where they're trying to gain access to multiple financial institutions. We also see exploits targeting software. So like Log4j, that's largely used across the financial institutions. So, you know, the threat actors that we're seeing have anywhere from destructive capabilities, which is to render the information system inoperable, to ransomware, where the goal is to siphon financial assets from institutions and to extract payments. So, you know, we really have to look and protect ourselves from all types of hazards. And I think that's where we currently are now within the cybersecurity realm. Also, we have to increase our partnerships, not only between institutions and sharing information, but we also need to continue to strengthen our partnerships with our government entities as well, so that we can get more intelligence on the capabilities of these threat actors.
Very good. Thanks, Jason. Maybe on the same subject, Olivier, what are the major trends that you've seen and observed during the past few months in relation to what Jason has alluded to?
Yeah, indeed. So I can first of all indeed echo what Jason just mentioned in terms of recent attacks, ransomware and supply chain exposures. So that has typically increased widely, and we see that even on our customers, Swift customers. But the original flow of hackers that was explained in the very early stage of the CSP program, which was about having access to key passwords and then infiltrate into the secure environment of the customers, and then from there generate fraudulent messages, and then cleaning up all the logs. This still remain, and this is the essence of the CSP program, to tackle these, as you mentioned, about the cyber resilience. So that's still in place, but we still see some of those events. Thanks God, it's much smaller amounts compared to the original days, but still incidents occur. But again, to the point that Jason was making, it's really the ransomware trends and the supply chains, which is more the trend these days.
Very good. Thanks, Olivier. And I think given the current threat levels, Jim, I'm interested to have a business and operational view on how important is achieving cyber resilient value chains given the threat levels and the sophistication that we just introduced.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously CSDs being critical part of financial market infrastructure, and their operational resilience being paramount, and cyber resilience is a key part of operational resilience now. So I mean, it's absolutely crucial for CSDs to build proper cyber resiliency. So we've been looking at CSDs for about 25 years, primarily for our banking clients, as part of their compliance with 17F7 and third-party risk management requirements. And now we're recognizing cyber as being one of the major risks to FMIs, and certainly that threat is being recognized by our clients as well. So our response has been to try and bring together not only existing data around information security, business continuity, operational resilience, to form a view of cyber resilience policies and frameworks, but we've also developed our own automated threat intelligence tool to allow us to continuously monitor around 4,000 financial service entities. So together, this is allowing us to bring cyber risk into our daily CSD risk assessments. And I think if you're talking about the threat to CSDs, I mean, I would actually contend that CSDs have been very fortunate, probably over the last sort of 15 years, that they've kind of flown under the radar of the major sort of hacking attacks, and that's primarily because there are just easier targets and more lucrative targets in terms of the commercial banks and the central banks, and more recently the crypto markets. The controls and procedures around transaction processing in CSDs are so complex that it's much more tricky proposition to actually steal anything, and most
Yeah.
CSPs don't hold cash.
Yeah.
Echoing what Jason was saying, I think the major threat is around knocking out CSD operations for any length of time, whether it be via a cyber attack for some kind of ransomware gain, or as we're seeing now, part of cyber warfare.
Yeah.
And certainly we were tracking Russia and Ukraine leading up to the invasion, and after the invasion,
Yeah.
we saw a huge amount of activity within the FMIs and other institutions in trying to address their vulnerabilities during that time. So it's clearly a key part of that metric now as well.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. So I think we all, as CSDs, and to also echo what you just mentioned, we risk great cyber attacks by taking into account also our controls, red teaming results, and all these kind of activities, and to see where we land basically. And having said that, Manoj, could you please just share your views in relation to the best strategies, in your opinion, aiming at strengthening the financial sector, cyber resilience overall, and more specifically the CSD cyber resilience?
Right, thanks. I think cyber resilience is a slightly broader concept. Actually, it includes many subcomponents. If you look at the building cyber resilience, as you have rightly said at the beginning, you need to have good business continuity. You have to secure critical business processes. What are the vectors? Then, moreover, you need to kind of manage risk as a whole. Then, apart from that, to minimize the severity of the attacks. And when you have attacks, then you need to have a procedure to withstand this incident. See, cyber resilience actually should enable the CSDs to continue normal business operations without any interruption during and after cyber attack. There is no single strategy that will ensure a good cyber resilience. It's a combination of many things that need to go into the building the cyber resilience, like having a strong business continuity plan, and then look at the business processes, secure the business processes, look at where your crown jewels are, securing them, and identifying the threat vectors and taking measures against them. So these are some of the things that need to be done so as to build resilience. So it's not just a silver bullet; it is a combination of many things:
Yeah.
technology, process, people, and again, people have been found as the weakest link. If you go back to your previous question, the threats. One of the major threats have been kind of social engineering. People are being kind of targeted, and more so because in the pandemic we started working remote. So that has given a foothold to the cyber attackers to gain into that ecosystem. So this combination is something that we should look at to strengthen our cyber resilience.
Indeed, Manoj. Thanks. So basically, we really need to have a kind of holistic view going beyond the exclusive technology dimension. Cyber resilience goes beyond technology, goes beyond IT. Certainly, IT has a critical role to play here, but definitely the people dimension and basically all the business continuity related matters, the testing of the existing framework, etc., are all important to basically increase the readiness of the financial sector in general and CSDs in particular here to be successful, not only responding but also recovering from any successful cyber attack. So, Jason, from your experience dealing with the industry in general and regulators, maybe, so what are the major market trends you've seen in relation to building resilience into the value chain? And here I'm not exclusively talking about technology, but technology, innovation, the move into the cloud as one of the strategies to build this resilience, or to help building this resilience, and the accelerated need to go to go to market basically. So the time to market is really under pressure now. So how we reconcile all of this while we're building the cyber resilience into the value chain?
Yeah, so I mean, look, you know, financial institutions are looking to take advantage of cloud. They're looking at, you know, distributed ledger. They're looking at blockchain. All of these are new technologies that are being introduced into financial services. And in doing that, we also still have old technology that we're running, you know, mainframes, Windows environments, and the like. So we're trying to incorporate the new technology in with the old technology. So that brings up, you know, risks that, of course, the financial authorities are concerned about, as well as institutions are trying to manage. One is, how do you do that integration of the new technology with the old technology, and what new risks does that create, or what existing risks are being accelerated because of or being changed, I should say, not accelerated, based on that. And then secondly, you have the risk that may exist from new technology. So trying to understand how the new technology is being used, what are the risks of that technology being used in this new environment. And then you're, of course, trying to balance that with time to market. So, you know, everybody's trying to get new financial products out quickly. They're looking at partnerships with fintech firms in order to accelerate that, which again starts to proliferate the use of third parties. And I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about that. Because as you expand and you start using third parties to provide services, that increases the surface area that threat actors have to attack the financial markets. So there's a lot to balance there. We're currently, there's a lot of dialogue right now in the public-private space on how to best manage that. What are the rules and the frameworks that we need to put in place in order to manage those risks? You see things like the EU Digital Operational Resilience Act, or DORA, that's looking at how cyber resilience has to evolve in order to manage this. So, you know, in short, you know, we had to look at the existing risks that we have and see how new technology impacts it. We need to look at the risks that new technology provides. We need to look at the existing frameworks that are in place from the financial authorities to see if they are adequate enough to address those risks. And then lastly, any changes to the aforementioned that need to occur, and developing a roadmap to address those risks and regulatory frameworks.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. I would like also to echo what you just said. So basically, new technologies and the new ways of delivering new products, etc., without being limited to DLT, but a lot of other also technologies that are being developed. I think they are creating opportunities, but at the same time, they're creating risks, and we should have the right frameworks in there. So, Olivier, in relation to this, what are, from your point of view, the major opportunities and the most significant risks that you see in relation to the adoption of new technologies, the move into the cloud, and how this is basically impacting the overall risk profile of the financial sector, again, from a critical FMI point of view?
Okay. So when Swift has developed the CSP framework, it didn't really matter what type of institution was included. It could be a CSD or a MMI or just a regular bank or even a corporate. So all our controls apply the same way, basically. So, but obviously our framework has evolved with time to include those new technologies, cloud, and we had to adapt our framework to make sure that we incorporate. And something that we have noticed is that when other entities were involved in the chain of payment, typically. So those entities were actually sometimes a bit overlooked and not really taken care of. So this is why we've reached out to many cloud providers, and recently we have deployed the Cloud Digital Initiative, just to make sure that we have enough assurance provided by those cloud providers to our customers, so that actually we had a continuum in the chain of assurance and cyber resilience all through the way up to Swift, right?
Good. Thanks, Olivier. Jim, in relation to what has been said so far in relation to adoption of new technologies, new frameworks in building cyber resilient value chains, what would be a business view in relation to all of this, adopting the new technologies and the importance of being cyber resilient along this process, innovating and deploying solutions, business processes into the cloud?
Well, certainly cloud technology could be a way forward for CSDs, and it's good to hear, I think, in this conference sort of more intentions towards investigating cloud. But I mean, I think the truth is that there are very few CSDs that have embraced cloud technology. Again, keep referencing Ukraine and Russia, but Ukraine is one of the only ones that have actually adopted it, and they had to do that because they were facing sort of physical and cyber warfare threats. And unfortunately, in many jurisdictions, the local regulators either limit or prohibit financial services data from being held outside of the local jurisdiction. And I personally think that's pretty counterproductive. So hackers don't respect national borders, so I don't think that the solutions should be forced to do so. But I mean, in terms of new technologies and their application, how cyber resilience has to adapt to those new technologies and new asset classes, whether it be crypto or digital assets or anything, obviously it's a major opportunity and it's a major challenge for the CSD community. And I think that really the CSD community has to try and work collaboratively in terms of standards for cyber resilience, in terms of education, sharing, knowledge and experience amongst the community. There's certainly a role for regional CSD associations and the WFC in doing that, because part of the problem with cyber risk is lack of transparency. We surveyed all banks about this. About 20% of banks said they'd had a successful cyber attack in the last 12 months. 8% wouldn't disclose. But when you ask the same question to CSDs, no CSDs admitted to having a successful cyber attack in the last 12 months, but nearly 30% refused to disclose it. So either that means that the CSD community is very secure or continues to remain largely overlooked. Or the more worrying conclusion is that maybe they are being successfully attacked and they're not being transparent about it. And that's very dangerous because it allows those attack vectors to be replicated time and time again.
Thanks, Jim, for these insights. Extremely useful and interesting to have this business view. And this also brings me to talk about the intra-firm collaboration. Okay, I think this is an important topic. Jason, how do you perceive the importance of intra-firm collaboration and strategic threat intelligence to achieve ecosystem cyber resilience?
Yeah, so what I'll say about intra-institution information sharing, and I'm taking that to mean how well we share information between ourselves. It's easier to defend a sector when we're all working together in that defense. So, we have information sharing forums like the FSI SACs that allow us to have platforms to share information, different types of threat intelligence, and, tactics, procedures that we're seeing from different threat actors, and it allows the community as a whole to then raise the level of protection that it has. So if we see something in our organization we could share those things in a platform where, there's a certain level of trust with the information. I think that's an invaluable commodity that we have, because the threat actors, they're sharing information. They're sharing information on the dark web. They're sharing tool sets. So trying to defend yourself as a single CSD or a single CCP or financial market infrastructure is, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage if you're not participating there.
Indeed.
I would say secondly, as it pertains to threat intelligence, is partnering with your government partners. They have intelligence about some of these nation states that they may be able to share to help improve the defenses of the institution. CSDs are critically important to any financial structure. So, the stronger that partnership is, and the more information that you can get from those partners to protect your networks is again another invaluable piece. And then industry and tabletops. Again, it's a way of sharing information so that you can understand how a specific segment may respond in the event of a cyber event, and that can inform how you as a CSD may formulate your response. So it's again another educational tool to help inform what you would need to do in a crisis. Because to be honest, even if there's a crisis that doesn't directly involve the CSD may still need to make adjustments to be able to bring stability to the markets and the market segment. So understanding not only what you're doing as a CSD, but understanding what your partners are doing and your members are doing is also key.
Indeed, Jason. This is extremely important, and I think SWIFT also has potentially a view on all of this. They are really a source maybe of information around, intelligence sharing, threat intelligence capabilities, etc., in building basically this knowledge and within the industry, and making sure that we are taking all together the right steps, building cyber protection, cyber defense controls around our technologies, around our business processes, and around our ecosystem, generally speaking. Olivier, do you have something to add here?
Yes, so indeed, you're right. And as soon as we got the first information about some of our customers being hacked, it was obvious that we needed some sort of level of transparency on how that happened, and if our other customers were actually exposed to the same time of attacks. So we built up the Swift ISAC portal at that time, which is now complemented by a MISP portal, where you can download information, security notification telling you, here is the way those customers, obviously anonymously, have been hacked, and here is how you could discover that you are on the same condition and exposed as well, right? But beyond these formal sites, we also obviously participating to some or organizing some industry workshops, CISO roundtables, where we remain vigilant and listen actively to our customers in various industry sectors, again, to make sure that we actually are aware of all those new technologies and the vulnerability, so that we again can factor that into our next version of the framework.
Very good. Thanks, Olivier. I think it's very well understood that information sharing, threat intelligence are really key to be proactive, tackling the evolution of the threat landscape and taking proactively the necessary measures. But it remains of equal importance also to be ready to respond and to recover in case of a successful cyber attack. Manoj, from your perspective, what are, from your point of view and from your experience, the key challenges and possible arrangements that helps enabling resuming critical operations rapidly, safely, and with accurate data? I know it's not an easy question, but I'm interested to have your insights here.
Yes. So very interesting question. You know, first thing is the challenges. Let me focus on some of the challenges, key challenges. One of the biggest challenges is blind spot. So if you do not know what exactly, how the incident has happened and what happened, then you obviously do not know how to respond to that. And then simple things like technologies, like backups. In case of cyber attacks, any other incidents like technology incidents, disruption, you can restore from backup. But in case of a cyber attack, there is a very little possibility that you can restore from backup because backup also or replication also gets corrupted. And the other challenges is that the organization do not conduct enough drills. If you do not practice when the real situation comes, then you are bound to fail and not have the right readiness. And other thing that the co-panelists have already spoken about is the intelligence. This is an industry where we should share intelligence to make the ecosystem much more robust. If you look at in our scenario, so even the regulators have promoted information sharing, and they have provided platform for the market infrastructure institutions to share intelligence anonymously. Then another thing that I would like to focus on the skill availability. In this area, you have a acute shortage of skills that impairs the operation cybersecurity responses. So what are the possible solutions? So if you just reverse what I told, will be possible solutions like create playbooks for all different kind of scenarios that can be perceived. Please create playbooks so that in case of a disaster, we can replay them and execute them. Then drills. Drills are very important. We to have drills that organizations conducting drills are more than 80% to succeed to recover from a successful cyber incident. Then the other thing is learn from others. A lot of time we ignore the incidents happening in the other industries and the total overall ecosystem. If we learn from others and see what are the incidents happening, how the response is being made, good or bad, both have to be done. Then again, re-emphasizing on the most important aspect
Yeah,
is collaborate to get intelligence. So these are
good.
some of the challenges and way forward to get around to be cyber resilient.
Very good. Thanks. And I think this is really a journey. We need to practice it. We need to test to make sure that we basically strengthening our controls, figuring out what is going well, what is working and what's not, and taking the necessary measures as part of this. And including this also into our business continuity processes, procedures, etc., is also key. That said, I think we still need to have metrics, to have cyber resilience metrics, to see where do we stand, where we want to go, what are the priorities. So here I'm interested to have both the business / operational point of view around building these metrics and what are the key metrics from their point of view, but also having the IT perspective out of this. So Jim, so if you can share with us what would be the key business metrics around cyber resilience, and Olivier, if you can share immediately after, basically, at least at a high level, the IT metrics that you think are of most relevance for keeping this journey effective and moving forward. Jim, the floor is yours.
Yeah. So from a business perspective, and I think talking about the principles of the metrics that you really need to be, looking at. As we've said before, it's fine to have a view of your own organization, but you also really need to have a view of all the third parties that you're connected to, because as we've said, FMIs operate in a very interconnected world these days, and you've got contamination risk between third parties, participants, different FMIs that you're linking into. So you need to have that kind of holistic view. And I think the other thing to say is that it needs to be dynamic. I mean, most financial institutions are running hundreds, if not thousands, of servers, and there's changes to those servers continuously. So, it's not good enough anymore, I don't think, to have a penetration test once every 6 months or every year. You really need to have a continuous monitoring system. So that kind of drives you towards having fairly sophisticated data-driven tools that can identify issues on a large scale, and it needs to be continuous. But the other thing is it needs to be detailed. So obviously you need the metrics to be able to provide you with enough information so that you can address the issues, and you need to be able to rerun those metrics quickly and easily so you can track your progress. So you need individual server analysis, clearly identifying the problem, assessing its significance, and indicating what the risks are that need to be addressed. And I think the common things that we see are probably the things that you can guess. It's vulnerable services that are still, or vulnerabilities that are still evident in people's servers. It's breached emails and passwords. It's certificate issues. I think the other thing worth noting is that, and this is again probably not going to surprise anybody, but it's mostly the emerging market infrastructures that are lagging behind, and that is clearly because it's quite an expensive. Cyber resilience is an expensive proposition, and it suggests that we really need to have some kind of inexpensive solutions, whether that's again what I've been saying about information sharing and education, or it's third-party solutions. I think as Jason alluded to, and I'd agree completely, I mean, a lot of CSDs are tackling this on their own. I think it's around 60%, as we've measured it, of CSDs that have no help whatsoever from the outside. I think that really needs to change.
Yeah, very good, very good. I think it's a shared effort in the ecosystem at the first place, within the business, with IT, and this brings me to the IT views around cyber resilience metrics, how IT would see that and would propose basically the most suitable metrics, at least from that perspective. Olivier, the floor is yours.
Yeah. So I think Jim already alluded to some of these. I mean, there's penetration testing, logging, vulnerability scanning. So you have plenty of ways to address it. And those controls are actually part of the CSP program. And at Swift, the way we measure it overall, I mean, because again, we're talking about 30-ish controls. This is really, I mean, a control in itself does not suffice. It's really a build-up of controls that make it very robust. And we have a compliance rating that we measure every year, actually, at any moment. And we are able to say, in this country, in this industry level, this is the rating. So obviously, over the years, this has improved. A bit smaller this year because the level of compliance was a bit smaller this year because we have introduced independent assessment. So it's not like our customers can say what they wanted to, but it needs to be supported by someone independent. So that has obviously impacted the figures. But again, this gives us a good measure of the maturity of the implementation of those controls in an organization.
Very good. Thanks, Olivier. And you just introduced the compliance topic. And this brings me to our last topic here around regulation and supervision. Jason, we've seen that regulation and supervision practices have evolved during the past few years on this topic. And we've seen a lot of new regulations in the US, in the UK, in the EU. So from your perspective, what are the major trends and what are the main challenges that you've seen already taking into consideration all these regulations all together within the same organization?
Yeah, so I mean, I think that the first thing we have to understand is that IT alone is not going to deliver on resilience. In the public dialogue, we're actually looking at operational resilience. So, and that is, how do you make sure that your business operations can withstand and respond and rapidly recover from any type of operational event. Cyber is just one of those pillars. So the landscape has evolved. It has started with the Basel Committee on Banking Supervision's principles for operational resilience, of which cyber is a part. But I would say one of the major trends that we're seeing here is that they are introducing a business element to resilience that will need to be met for all organizations. We're seeing this impact the EU. We already talked about the Digital Operational Resilience Act that will be forthcoming, and so we'll see more activity there. You see the UK with their operational resilience guidelines, and we'll see more activity from the UK. We've seen new rulemaking in Singapore and in Hong Kong relative to operational resilience. All of these things have a cyber component. But again, like I said, there's a business element to this that we need to take as a CSDs, we need to understand. I think that for the other things that we'll see for CSDs is that you're going to get requirements from both sides. You're going to receive those requirements indirectly from your members who are being required to conduct operational resilience, and that operational resilience has to extend through the supply chain. So things like process maps, scenario testing, understanding the maximum allowable downtime that you'll have as a CSD so that they can actually plan their activities. So you'll see it in that way. You'll also start to see it directly from our regulatory authorities, that there's going to be this business element that we have to contend with in order to meet resilience all the way through IT. I think you'll also see a big push on third party, because again, resilience cannot really be achieved unless it goes through the supply chain. So there's currently dialogue about how that looks and how that will look. I think the UK has recently put out a consultation for CSDs, CCPs, and payment operators in the space of operational resilience. So they're looking to really take the lead there and kind of drive that. So again, there's just a lot of activity right now. It's going to impact CSDs. If you haven't looked at some of these new rules, I think it would be beneficial to do so that you can kind of get an understanding of where this space is moving and what your requirements will be underneath this.
Very good. Thanks, Jason. Thank you all. We're running out of time. Maybe if you can take maybe 2 minutes just to wrap up this discussion and to finish with some closing remarks. I'm going to start with Jim, then moving to Olivier, Manoj, and we'll end up with Jason.
Wow, just conclude, I think, as the way I started. So, I mean, this is, critical. It's very complicated, and it's continuously evolving, and it's certainly hitting the radar, as we've heard of the regulators, the major financial institutions, and others. So it's something that is becoming increasingly important.
Very good. Thank you, Jim. Olivier?
Yeah, I think one of the key message from this discussion is typically, there needs to be some sort of mix between business views and IT views, and also inter-firm type of communications to make sure that the compliance I was talking about earlier is really met at all levels to ensure cyber resilience.
Very good. Thanks, Olivier. Manoj?
Yeah, so cyber resilience is not something that like a silver bullet and we can have it in one go. It's a continuous process, because adverse agents are also working full time to make sure that there is damage to the ecosystem, So it's a continuous process, and we'll always be on our guard. Second important thing is to have a collaborative environment, because as Jason has mentioned, the cyber criminals, they are collaborating and we are not. That's a bad situation to be in. So we have to have a collaborative environment where we share intelligence about the attacks and any adverse incident that happens, so as to make us more prepared and ready for such incidents and build the overall resilience for the ecosystem.
Thank you. Thank you, Manoj. Jason, the closing remark would come from DTCC. The floor is yours.
Thank you. I'll leave with three things. I think, the first thing is around threat intelligence. If you're not currently doing it or you're doing it on your own, I encourage CSDs to become part of a threat intelligence community where they're sharing that information and gaining visibility into the threats that are being seen across the sector so that they can improve their defenses. Second, I will stress the importance of understanding the risk that you have within your supply chain. This is an area where there's extreme regulatory focus of not only understanding the risk, but actually the resilience and capabilities that those third parties have to maintain their operations. And then last but not least, I will say, pay attention to the regulatory environment. I'll point to the Basel Committee on Banking Supervision's principles for outsourcing. I understand that it's the BCBS, and most people will be like, well, that's what banks and firms are doing. But the rules that are coming out will impact CSDs because they're being told to extend them through their third parties. So understanding what those requirements that'll be coming from the members will be, because ultimately it's going to impact the way we need to deliver our resilience capabilities to our membership. So those are the three things that I would leave with.
Very good. Thank you, Jason. Thank you all. Thanks for all the participants. Thanks for joining. It was a very good session. Bruce, the floor is yours now.
Thank you, Najib, and to the panel for sharing your perspectives on the current evolution of cyber resilience and its implications for CSDs. It was very, very interesting and informative. This was our last panel for day 2. Tomorrow, on the third and final day of the conference, discussion will be dedicated to the business matters of CSD functioning. Tomorrow, we will hear from CSD stakeholders about business optimization and shortened settlement cycles, and close the conference with a vision panel, bringing together some of the leaders of the most important CSDs and market utilities worldwide. Come back for day 3 conference tomorrow at 10:45 Eastern Time. Please check your local time on the website, and please note that that's a start 15 minutes earlier than the first 2 days. I'll do my best to be here bright-eyed and bushy-tailed at 3:45 my local time. We'll now continue with the replay of the first session of the day on the new technologies at the service of CSDs. If you weren't with us first thing this morning, you can watch that replay right now. We wish you all a lovely evening or afternoon for some of us, and look forward to seeing you back here tomorrow for the final day. Have a great day. Bye-bye.